Right now, 1 in 3 adults is living with a breakdown in cellular communication. Inside their bodies, cells are beginning to go dark, ignoring the very signals meant to keep them alive. Yet most of these people feel completely fine. This early breakdown is invisible to standard fasting blood sugar tests. While your lab results look perfect, a silent 15-year progression has already begun, slowly straining the liver and cardiovascular system long before any clinical diagnosis. The first signs are subtle. You might notice a heavy, persistent fatigue right after lunch, or an intense craving for sugar in the late afternoon. You might even find new, tiny skin tags appearing around your neck, small physical markers that the internal countdown is underway. By the time type 2 diabetes is actually diagnosed, the body has already endured a decade of this invisible standoff. The disease is the final, measurable stage of a long-term systemic collapse. To understand this standoff, we look at the healthy baseline. Your bloodstream is essentially a highway for fuel, and your pancreas dispatches a hormone called insulin to act as an entry pass, signaling your cells to open their loading bays for glucose. This system remained a total mystery. We only commercialized this hormone in the 1920s, seen in this early islatin ampule from Eli Lilly. When insulin meets a cell receptor, a door called a GLUT4 channel opens. Glucose flows in, dropping blood sugar safely. But in insulin resistance, the signal is sent, yet the channel remains closed. Glucose bottlenecks, piling up dangerously in the bloodstream. This cellular refusal is a deliberate biological act. To understand why the cell is ignoring the signal, we have to look at what is happening inside the cell itself. Passing through the cell membrane reveals a chaotic internal environment. The space is overcrowded, and the storage systems are under extreme pressure. The cell is reacting to years of relentless glucose spikes and chronic stress. Its internal storage for energy, known as glycogen, has reached its absolute limit. It simply has no room left for more fuel. This leads to the accumulation of ectopic fat droplets that begin to deposit directly inside the muscle cell. This internal fat acts like a physical barrier, interrupting the chemical pathways that allow the insulin signal to reach the cell's interior. To protect itself from an energy overload that could be fatal, the cell initiates a process called serine phosphorylation. It intentionally alters its own internal signaling proteins, effectively disconnecting the buzzer so it no longer hears the pancreas calling. Insulin resistance is a survival mechanism. The cell is barricading itself against a modern environment of constant caloric surplus that it was never evolved to handle. Your pancreas, however, is a blind sensor. It cannot see that the cells are full. It only detects that blood sugar is staying dangerously high and concludes that it hasn't sent enough of a signal. The pancreas enters a state of panic, flooding the body with massive, unnatural amounts of insulin to try and force the resistant cells to respond. This chronically high insulin, or hyperinsulinemia, creates a new set of problems. It traps fat inside your cells, making weight loss nearly impossible, and it forces the kidneys to retain sodium, which directly raises your blood pressure. The pancreas can sustain this overwork for years, but the beta cells eventually reach a breaking point. They begin to exhaust themselves and die off, and insulin production finally starts to fail. At this point, blood sugar rises unchecked because the primary organ of regulation has worked itself to death. This is the biological reality of type 2 diabetes. This process is reversible during that 15-year window of resistance. Because the cellular barricade is a protective response, you can dismantle it by changing the signals the cell receives. There is a biological backdoor that doesn't require insulin. Intense muscle contraction during exercise generates an internal signal that overrides the barricade. Exercise activates a master protein called AMPK. This molecule moves to the GLUT4 channels and pushes them open from the inside out, allowing the cell to pull in glucose for fuel without needing any help from the insulin receptor. Combining this with a reduction in refined carbohydrates and longer fasting windows gives your insulin levels the time they need to drop. This allows the cell to finally clear its internal fat stores and restore its original sensitivity. Metabolic health is the direct result of biological inputs. By providing the right signals through movement and nutrition, you can deactivate the barricade and return your cellular communication to its natural state.